Welcome!
Welcome to the Omniverse of Nick, and the penultimate part to What If Green Goblin Survived. Before we get into it, be sure to check out the Omniverse's homepage, where our channel mascot Omni will direct you to the Discord, all Google Docs, and everything else the Omniverse has to offer, along with smashing the like button, subscribing to the Omniverse of Nick, sharing the Omniverse around, turning on all Omniversal notifications, and commenting future requests and expectations in the comment section. With all that said, let's begin. We ended off last time with Green Goblin resurfacing with his last little flickers of life, much more closer to death after all these years than in Spider-Man 1. The Venom symbiote, sensing this, latched on, and now we get a venomized Green Goblin. All he wants is revenge, and the Venom symbiote empowers and feeds that, and makes his superhuman goblin powers even stronger. And he flies to find his prey, whether it's Doc Ock, his own son, or Peter Parker himself. Meanwhile, Peter's not going to become, Bully Maguire or, evil Tobey Maguire or, Venom Tobey, because the symbiote doesn't target him. Instead, he is thinking about Uncle Ben and everything like that. And this time, instead of waking up on the building and then going to get revenge, he wakes up, is very upset at what he wakes up from with the nightmares, and then goes for a confrontation which isn't nearly as clouded by rage as his original one is. So he's plenty mad and wants to go and fight Sandman again, but if anything, he just wants answers, and he wants more of a fight. Sure, part of him wants to kill Sandman, but it's not nearly as clouded with rage because the Venom symbiote isn't triggering it. So, he goes, and he encounters Sandman in the same place that he did, except it takes a little bit longer, so the fight happens elsewhere, so there's not going to be any, mud or anything like that involved. Or, water or anything like that. And confronts him about the whole Uncle Ben thing. And once he gets there, Sandman is surprised that he came back to fight him again. And after the whole thing, and once Tobey's Peter brings it up, then he starts to get more angry. And this time Tobey's Peter doesn't attack first. But as the situation escalates and it's not seeming to really gain any answers, especially after the encounter got physical, especially after last time, it just breaks into a fight. Spider-Man versus Sandman round 2. Except it almost goes the same as round 1, with the Venom symbiote not empowering him. Tobey's not really gaining a win, but neither is Sandman. So if anything, it's more or less a stalemate. Until, while this battle is going on, mechanical arms impede on the city, which is not even paying attention in the night, on a very different side of New York City. Doc Ock has returned, making his presence after all this time. Just like the Doc Ock story, he has mastered control over the arms and goes to help Peter because he knows the threat's been going on. He saw the TV, he saw the news just like before. So he's going to go help Peter. But his path diverges when he sees a glider and a very, 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 very familiar presence. He can't believe it. Osborn? But he was supposed to be dead all those years ago. And himself and Peter made sure that he was actually dead. But this is an Osborn. And it's not the Goblin. Oh, it's the glider, and it's the appearance. But that black presence, that goo on him, this thing, that it must be a symbiote or some kind of creature or parasite. And he sees, without even being noticed, he tracks Goblin. And he sees Goblin's trying to look for Peter, same as him. But he hasn't noticed Doc Ock yet. And on the way, he encounters Eddie Brock. Now, Eddie was just about to go to the church because of his rage towards Peter and the Spider-Man and, you know, that whole thing. Norman, some of his face gets revealed. And he says to Eddie Brock, "You want revenge against Peter Parker and Spider-Man as well, don't you? What if I were to tell you that not only were they the same person, but you could get your revenge on both at the same time?" And he uncovers the Venom symbiote, and it gets off his body, and it latches on to him, Eddie Brock. So within a few seconds, Eddie Brock becomes Venom. But himself, his face gets revealed again after, the symbiote latches onto him. And himself, along with probably the entire audience watching this, is probably like, why would you give up the symbiote? Wouldn't it want you more? Especially because Eddie Brock would definitely know about Norman Osborn and the Goblin, especially after living through 2 movies. And he would be like, why would you give up something this powerful to take down Peter Parker and Spider-Man? Or do you think you're enough, that giving this to me gives you still more of the edge in this alliance of ours? But Norman says, you think that creature was the only one? No. I don't need it. And he says to come with me. I'll show you something that will really change the tide of Peter Parker. So they go to Norman's lab, or his house, but it's a very different part of the house, so Harry would have never been able to understand. So, it's revealed that while Goblin was coming out of the water, and before Doc Ock tracked him again, Goblin, he wasn't flying past New York City, like the part where he was drowned in with the machine. He wasn't flying directly from there. He had actually made a stop and used a part of the Venom symbiote along with his Goblin toxin to create Toxin, another symbiote who is especially shown in Venom: The Last Dance. And this is not a symbiote that I'm adding 2 at once. This is Goblin Toxin. So it's basically a copy of a symbiote, not the real thing. So, yeah. Goblin says, I told you, I didn't need the symbiote when I have another one right here. And he pulls open the cage which Toxin is in, and it latches onto him. So now we get Toxin Green Goblin. And gets on his glider and says, let's make Peter Parker, Doc Ock, and Mary Jane and all those suffer. And Eddie Brock says, with the Venom symbiote, gladly. Doc Ock can't believe what he is seeing. Not only is Norman alive because of this creature, but he's aligned himself with a dumb kid, given him the symbiote, and made one of his own using the real thing? Doc Ock knows that the only way that they can possibly win this is if he does not get revealed here by following Norman, and that he goes and finds Peter and his little friends right now. Mary Jane, whatever the frick. And he's also got to warn Goblin's son. Because Harry still does not know that Norman survived, even after he came back and fought him. So, he goes as fast and as stealthily as he can with his arms. Thankfully, Norman and Eddie, even though the symbiotes have, picked up senses along with their own, Doc Ock was still able to get out of there without being noticed. So eventually, Doc Ock finds Tobey Spider-Man and Sandman, who stopped duking it out and were just about to talk to each other after a seemingly just, standoff, like Midway's not really gaining anything sort of fight, when Doc Ock appears, frantic. And he tells Tobey's Peter everything about what transpired since he came back here, and that Goblin is alive again. And soon, everybody realizes this is a big threat. Like, they are in big trouble now. And then we get the whole Harry. If Harry got his memory back and everything, so he knows that Peter killed his dad. So now he's at that point where he wants to get revenge. But whenever they get to go warn Harry, Peter uses his webs and Doc Ock uses his arms, along with Sandman restraining him. And then Tobey's Peter explains everything. That not only did Norman survive both encounters, but they kept it from him because it would have been pointless. At least, that's what they thought. And after they explain every single little thing about Harry and everything, and all three of them telling Harry about this, Harry is beginning to reconsider his growing hatred and this burning rage inside of him. But it's too late. A bomb, a pumpkin bomb, rings out and it blows straight into Peter's face, reminiscent of the very first time that this happened. And a glider crashes in to the home of Harry and Norman Osborn. And one symbiote with dark, green, very menacing presence jumps down off of it. And next to him, the Venom symbiote with Eddie Brock inside. And Toxin opens his face to reveal Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin. And Norman, sitting face to face with his father, cannot believe that everything that Peter and them said is true. And now, Norman is like, "You're the only one I know that has never betrayed me all these years. Surely you won't allow Peter and these people to lie to you, especially a maniacal scientist like Doc Ock, who turned himself mad with power. Difference between me and him, I've actually succeeded. Join us, Harry. Become who you were meant to be. Is in your blood." Harry thinks about this for a second, now thrown between two wedges. His father's or the right path. And he chooses Spider-Man's and rushes forward. Sandman then goes into Sand Mode and launches weapons after attacks, and attacks Toxin Green Goblin, while Spider-Man attacks Venom. So fight between Sandman and Toxin Green Goblin with the glider rages on. And it does seem like Sandman has some sort of an edge because Green Goblin and Toxin have never encountered him before. But then it starts to become plainly obvious Goblin Toxin's toying with him. And once he figures out about Sandman's powers, he's just messing with him. But then Harry goes to help. And then Toxin, Green Goblin, that's when he unleashes it all. Weapon after weapon, after lasso, after pumpkin bomb, after glider attack. And he is even surprised himself that the two are still fighting him on. And at this point, it becomes a full-on battle between Goblin and Harry. And then, all of a sudden, the symbiote seems to just dissolve. It just, Norman's personality, even he thought that it was dead, but no, it's still inside of him. After all these years, he's flashed back. Goblin and the Toxin, they've been rolled out because of this fight. And Norman's just sitting there on the ground. Harry, pumpkin bomb in hand, and Sandman behind him are very cautious. Harry says to his father, "It's not too late. Turn back. Remember who you are. You were not like this. The father Norman Osborn I knew. He might not have been the greatest, but he was no killer. And he certainly was never one who would want his son to join a side that means nothing. But the Goblin Toxin persona are too strong, and they resurface and fold back over Norman's and stab Harry to death." Norman says, or, Goblin's Toxin's persona, "You were strong enough to have it all, too weak to take it. No son of mine tells me how to live, especially after you weren't there to see what I went through. My own glider used as a weapon, a maniacal scientist machine to drown me. But now, you won't get the same luxury I had. You die in my place." And he just maniacally laughs as he knows that with this death begins the next phase of their plan. Peter and Sandman will be too distraught. Now, they begin the true plan of Goblin's revenge. And with this, Goblin, Toxin, and Venom, they fold out of there quickly. And Toby's Peter and Sandman mourn the death of Harry. And then Sandman and Toby's Peter stare each other down and ask each other one last time, can they work together? Sandman explains everything about Uncle Ben's death and says he doesn't expect forgiveness, but he will do everything in his power to ensure that he does right by Spider-Man and helps him end this battle once and for all, for Harry's sake, for his Uncle Ben's, and every one that Peter cares about. And Peter forgives him, and the deal is set. So, they go to a lab, specifically the lab inside Harry's home, because of the butler's help, and they decide that the only way that they can win this fight without Harry is if they make a cure. What they have to do is get the symbiotes off of both of them. They are more than a match for Venom and Eddie Brock, but they're not a match for Toxin Goblin. He's way too strong. And with Venom Team by his side, they are absolutely no match, even with all of their powers, both of them combined. So what they need to do is find a way to divert the symbiotes off and then cure Norman. Because by then, the symbiote won't be attracted to him. The only reason that it was attracted to him was because of Goblin. But if they can cure Goblin out of him, perhaps that will divert the symbiote away and they can kill both of them. As for Eddie and Norman, they'll cross that bridge when they come to it. So, they are able to cure or, make the cure for Norman and Goblin. But at another side of the lab, it is revealed Doc Ock is there. Toby's Peter and Doc Ock talk to each other and is like, why didn't Doc Ock help them? And it's revealed Doc Ock has a plan. If they really want to win this fight, they have another partner. Him. It's revealed he was in this lab first. He had taken upon Oscorp and the technology here to increase his arms, and he has a plan of his own. And he will buy them both the time that they need to kill the symbiotes and put Norman and Eddie down so they're not a threat. And he says, take all the time you need. If anything, you won't need the cure at all. What does Doc Ock have up his sleeve? Will it actually work? Or will Goblin win and fold in to Goblin truly being the most menacing presence for the ending part next time for the survival of Green Goblin?
Now get out!
What?
Get out! Everybody get out!